Thank you, John, for inviting me here today and for WTM for giving me the chance to speak to you today. It's hard to follow with a suit and a tie after listening to Schooley. It's great to meet other airline executives that are working hard in their models. I'm sure we'll talk more about it later. Ladies and gentlemen, British Airways matters. It matters to the millions of people who fly with us every year. It matters to our brilliant British Airways staff, my colleagues, who are the heartbeat of the airline. And it matters to Britain as our national flag carrier. And as its current custodian, it matters to me. It is a world-leading airline with a proud history, but today I want to talk to you about the future. I believe that the opportunity ahead of us has never been greater. In 2019, we will celebrate our centenary. It will be a very special, very unique milestone. We need to reach that moment stronger than at any point in our history to do even more for our customers and more for Britain at what will be an important time for our country. Our best days can lie ahead of us, but only if we continue to modernize and lead change. My starting point is very simple. I believe that British Airways is facing a combination of competitive forces. As Collingwood is saying, competition will keep growing. They represent a unique context in which we must shape BA for the future as a premium airline committed to customer choice and one that is a byword around the world for British know-how and excellence. A British Airways that is there for everyone. Our values as an airline are special and timeless, our essential Britishness, our proud history of innovation, our expertise and professionalism, and our personalized service that puts quality and reliability first. These things make up our DNA. As we modernize, we must always look to preserve and strengthen them. The fundamentals of British Airways today are sound. Today, I want to set out our ambitious plans to help us take this next step on the journey, to stay ahead of the competition and improve the experience of British Airways customers in whichever cabin of the aircraft they choose to fly. To make these plans a reality, I can announce to you today that we are committing to a £4.5 billion investment over the next 5 years. First, a couple of things about me. I've been in the airline industry all my life. I started as an industrial engineer for American Airlines in Dallas just 27 years ago. And I have always been someone that has admired and looked up British Airways. In fact, my first flight ever was jetting into Heathrow many years ago. I have lived here in the UK for 21 years, commuting to Spain when I ran Vueling. All my kids are born in London, and they have made Britain their home, as I have. I know the place British Airways holds in the affections, not just out of this country, but right around the world. And I recognize my responsibilities as its current chairman and CEO. Now, it's been 30 years since British Airways was privatized. That was a watershed moment for the airline. Privatization acted as a point of renewal for British Airways, unlocking an energy and creativity that had been stifled for the years of state ownership. Some still look back on that early post-privatization period as a golden era for the airline, and in many ways it was. However, the wider changes in the airline industry over those 3 decades are often underestimated. In 1987, EasyJet didn't exist. Ryanair and Emirates were both tiny regional airlines. The US majors were bywords for transatlantic discomfort. No one had heard of low-cost carriers, let alone long-haul low-cost carriers. And British Airways had no more than one competitor in the vast majority of its routes. Nowhere is the contrast more obvious between that era and now than on the price of a ticket. In 1987, the cheapest BA fare to the US was the equivalent in today's money of about £850. The cheapest we offer today is $386. I shall tell you, at King's Cross this morning, I promise, I saw it on a billboard, British Airways to Fort Lauderdale return $189, including taxes and bags and food and frequent flyer points, etc., etc. A ticket to Rome in 2017 money cost £400. Now you can pick one up for about £80. And guess what? Consumers like low fares. Customers have an expectation that great value fares will be available. That's a fact of life that airlines of all types must recognize if they want their businesses to thrive. As a national flag carrier, we are not granted some special immunity from the way the industry has changed. Incumbency does not grant any privilege. We have no divine right to flourish, and we don't ask for one. The current plight of airlines like Alitalia is testament to that. The lesson of recent years for flag carriers across Europe has been that if you don't change habits formed in cozier eras, you will shrink and ultimately risk irrelevance. Profitability and returns to shareholders are not optional extras. And as we've seen in recent weeks, it's not just legacy flag carriers for whom the competitive kitchen can get quite hot. The insolvencies of Air Berlin and Monarch, which both have operated successfully for many, many years, have underlined the unforgiving nature of the current marketplace. The simple truth is that the airline market today is more competitive than it's ever been. In short haul, that's not really news. EasyJet and Ryanair have grown from fledglings to giants, and their low-cost success inevitably has spawned many imitators. And the low-cost model is now spreading to long haul, as we've just seen. This year, we've seen an upsurge in low-cost, long-distance services. From London, you can fly with low-cost operators to a lot of destinations in North America, now Singapore, and soon South America as well. It is abundantly clear that low-cost, long-haul is becoming a more resilient model than many people anticipated. Meanwhile, the competitive temperature is also rising in the premium market. Emirates, Qatar, Etihad have all invested heavily in long-haul luxury. And having emerged from financial restructuring and consolidation, the US big three transatlantic carriers are significantly upgrading their business class products. So we face waves of new competition on all fronts, and we also face changing customer behaviors as online price transparency has opened up a world of almost unlimited choice at the touch of a button. It becomes harder and harder to categorize customers who think nothing of flying business class for a particular trip and low cost for another type of trip, depending on convenience, value, and the purpose of their journey. Brand loyalty must be earned like never before. And if that wasn't enough, consumers' discretionary cash is being targeted ever so smartly by the giant and not so giant online retailers. Weekend in Paris or a brand new drone? We'll soon get those in our mailboxes. So, how should British Airways respond to these challenges? Since I became Chief Exec 18 months ago, I've been putting in place the foundations of our response. We have addressed some of our structural cost issues, for example, in back office headcount and in some of the ways that we work. And we are currently engaged in a consultation on our pension provision. We have paid lots of attention to fixing the basics of our operation. We have more to do, but we have firmly established ourselves as the most punctual of the three big short-haul carriers flying from London. According to the CAA data, we have more than 19 percentage points ahead of our rivals over the last 12 months. Our baggage performance this year is at its best level for a decade, and we have modernized the way that we sell tickets in the 21st century with significant development of BA.com, the BA app, and of course, what we launched last week, the new distribution capability, NDC, to modernize the way that we relate to the travel trade. Over this period, I have often been reminded that change is not easy. We've learned some hard lessons this year, and where we have fallen short, we're doing the best to put it right. I know the introduction of buy-on-board catering on short-haul economy had its critics. I know we did not deliver it initially as well as we could have. We have listened to our customers and our cabin crew very carefully. We've made changes. We have simplified the menu. We've allocated more crew to busier flights to ensure that we can provide a faster service. Take-up is running much, much higher than anticipated. But we are committed to making this element of the customer experience the very best in the airline industry. So the challenges are real, but they do not diminish the fundamental importance of getting ourselves in the right shape to take on competitors and win. As we look ahead, we want to strengthen our responses to the competition and do even more for a customer across a number of areas. We want to be the airline of choice for everyone. Every customer matters, short haul or long haul, economy or premium. So we must have an offer that is attractive to everyone. That means things like we will develop our biggest ever route network. Next year, we'll be launching new long-haul services to Nashville, Tennessee, and the Seychelles, and a range of new short-haul routes. I can announce one of these today, a summer leisure route from Heathrow to Figari in Corsica, which is another example of how we're using our slot portfolio more flexibly. Comparing our summer 2018 network with summer 2016, just 2 years, we will be flying 38 more routes, an increase of 17%. We will offer different fares to suit different customer preferences. More low fares, so we can truly compete globally. For example, in September, a few weeks ago, you may have seen over 250,000 short-haul seats at under £30 one way, and we just extended that fare for selected flights from Heathrow. On some of our aircraft, we are increasing the size of our premium economy cabin, World Traveller Plus, so that this popular product is more widely available. We need to do even more to shape services around the needs of our customers. I want us to set up a new benchmark of digital relationships. That means taking a number of important steps in relation to the customer experience. We will make our app the best airline in the world, the best app in the world. Super personal and very responsive. We will use technology to help our customer-facing colleagues provide faster and more personalized service. We will do more to speed people throughout the airport. For example, with biometric boarding gates, which will roll out to all flights from T5, self-service bag drops to cut queuing, and automatic gates for connecting passengers. All of these are already at work at Heathrow Terminal 5. We also want to set new standards for punctuality. I know this really matters to customers, and as I said earlier, we've made significant progress this year, but we think we can do and we will do more. We also need to continue to reduce overheads and increase our efficiency so that we can invest for customers and compete in the marketplace. And I've already mentioned some of the structural measures we're taking. We don't pursue efficiency just for its narrow sake. We do so to be able to take on competition, become stronger as a business, offer more low fares, and invest on our customer experience. So that's why I can tell you today that we will invest £4.5 billion over the next 5 years to improve the experience of customers in all cabins of our aircraft. We will take delivery of 72 new aircraft, including 4 new types for the BA fleet, the Airbus 350 and the 787-10, as well as from the Airbus family, the 320 and 321 NEOs. We will refurbish the cabins of 128 of our existing aircraft, so they will look and feel new. We will install at-seat power points in all cabins. We will introduce the best Wi-Fi in the sky in all cabins. And for our economy customers in long haul, we will upgrade catering so that everyone has better snacks, and on longer flights, everyone has a full second meal. In the Club World cabin, we will press ahead with the rollout of our investment across the long-haul network, and we have increased that investment to £600 million from the previously stated £400 million. Customers' initial response to our new catering and the white company bedding has been really fantastic. We will invest in premium training for thousands of customer-facing colleagues. We will continue our lounge refurbishment program with New York, Rome, and Aberdeen on the list for next year. And we will introduce our new Club World seat with direct aisle access from 2019. By comfort, I don't just mean the customer's onboard experience, important though as that undoubtedly is. I also mean the quality of their experience at every point in their dealings with us, from when they first consider traveling up until the point they get to their destination. And it should be a quality experience, whether they're traveling first class to New York or economy to Barcelona. Customers are savvy. They understand the trade-offs between price and value, but the principles of how we treat every customer should be the same regardless. These plans represent exciting improvements for the coming years. They are about building on what makes British Airways special and different. They are about anticipating the future, taking on the competition so we can fight for every customer and lead globally as a premium airline committed to ever greater customer choice. It is unquestionably the right path for us to take in the face of today's competition and tomorrow's opportunities. As I said earlier, 2019 will mark our centenary. We will want to use the year both to celebrate our heritage and to chart a dynamic future into our next 100 years. And there's one reason above all others that gives me the confidence that we can do this. The people at BA, my colleagues, the staff that serves you every day. They are the heartbeat of the airline. British Airways values are in their blood. It is their expertise and professionalism that has made us who we are today and will give shape to our future. This next chapter for British Airways will coincide with what effectively will be a new chapter for the UK. Irrespective of the outcome of Brexit negotiations, and I don't propose to get involved in discussing Brexit, it is undisputable that a strong national carrier with links already well established all over the globe will be crucially important for the country, flying the flag for Britain to create and support opportunity. Recognizing all the competitive challenges we face, I'm passionate about setting British Airways on the right path to deliver for customers and to fulfill our potential. If we continue to embrace change while staying true to our values, there's truly no limit to what we can achieve. I firmly believe that our best days lie ahead. Thank you very much.
You got that one, Alex. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, you've had it all your own way so far. You've given us the...
When was the last time you saw me giving a speech?
I think it's the first time, actually, Alex. Well, listen, I've known you back since your Welling days when you probably would have turned up here in an open neck shirt, as you said, like Scully. Now you're smart-suited, the dapper BA CEO, and I forgot to say chairman this year, so apologies about that. But you've been in the role now for, what, 18, 19 months. Yep. This is your first big public outing. You've had some outings that you would have perhaps chosen not to have. Have you found this a bigger, harder ship to steer than Vueling? Vueling was an airline, in fact, that was built out of a merger between Vueling and Click Air, which you founded, both low-cost airlines. Smaller, more nimble, successful, as you described. But is it a completely different challenge now that you're facing this role at BA?
It is a completely different challenge, mostly driven by size. I think that my 10 years at American Airlines prior to starting up Click Air and then Vueling exposed me to the industry and to the main issues that drive what makes this industry work. So ultimately, I don't feel unfamiliar around the issues that BA has to tackle, but the size is very large. Having 45,000 people with whom to have a dialogue every day is completely different from knowing the names of half of the pilots or cabin crew. And yet it's a fantastic challenge, and one that I feel a great deal of support by my immediate team and the larger team at large.
And in terms of you being selected, Vueling became part of the IAG group, so you were part of the management team more broadly. What was the decision-making process? Well, maybe you don't know the answer, I'll ask you anyway. What was the decision-making process that led to you being the guy who was picked? What did they see as they interviewed Alex as the one we want to take up the
There's some Irish fellow you got to talk to.
Maybe I should.
Yes, yeah. You should ask him. I guess what was really special in many respects was the COO that I started Click Air with, Luis Gallego. Eventually became CEO of Vueling with me, eventually became CEO of Iberia, Express, and then ultimately CEO of Iberia. So perhaps Willie has a weakness for guys that come from smaller carriers, startup carriers, and have some experience in the background. And
although you came from, as you said, you had a lot of legacy, as it were, experience through American Airlines in the early part of your career, you had been through that, if you like, low-cost indoctrination or Jesuit-like training, and I think Willie Walsh does see the value of that rigorous focus on cost and efficiency that low-cost carriers have.
I think mostly what Willie values most of all is an attitude around being pragmatic, looking at making sure that decisions are made suitably with the right criteria, motivating teams to work around those ideas. I think it has to do less with the project and more with the mindset of the people that he tends to surround himself with. Very pragmatic, action-oriented, wanting things to happen quickly, and I think that it's mostly about the personality more than the actual experience itself.
And if you'd known what you know now, 18 months on, and you think back to this spring, has it been a baptism of fire that you think, well, I wish I hadn't said yes?
No, this was an opportunity I couldn't possibly pass. I thought that, particularly being a London resident, for me personally, it's changed my personal life, because I don't have to commute to Barcelona anymore. But beyond that, I think the challenge to leverage all the value that BA has within it and drive it towards the future, something I couldn't pass up. And I feel a tremendous degree of support, both from IG and Willie and the rest of the team, as well as from all the people that I work with on a daily basis.
No, we won't spend the next 45 minutes talking about it, but you woke up on that Saturday morning back in May, or you got a phone call from somebody in, I don't know, BA operational area telling you what was beginning to unfold at Heathrow with the fateful day of what we now know, contractor switching off some switch that led to a whole catalogue of events that more or less put the network in a meltdown. Can you tell us more now? We've got the benefit of hindsight. We've got several months since that happened. Have you got to the bottom of what happened? Is it explainable? Is it avoidable for the future?
Yeah, I think lots of studies and audits have been completed. We've already explained in the press what actually happened. I think the biggest outcome of this has been a renewed focus on investment, an acceleration of a lot of IT projects that were taking place in the background, things like moving applications, operational applications to the cloud, and looking at data servers and all these kinds of technical considerations. I think that the event itself sped up a great deal of those investments. And at the moment, we're very confident that all this investment is putting us in a significantly much better place from a resilience perspective, from an IT power buildings perspective.
I mean, you personally are very IT focused, very digital oriented. You use all the apps and systems. This is not about BA having tried to shortchange its investment in IT because it was out of a public gaze, so it didn't really matter. It's not because of that this happened, this failure that weekend.
No, certainly not from my perspective. This was the work around this incident that was being done by top-notch companies that we've been working, and many companies around the world, large labels, work with. So no, I don't think that's the case at all.
And lessons learned, and I guess from a BA or IG perspective, we shouldn't expect to see any repeat of this happening again.
I think that the investment that we've put into additional IT infrastructure, migration to other type of platforms, etc., will put us in a very good position to not have to deal with these situations.
And what about, I mean, what seemed to me the unique challenge here was BA took a lot of criticism, and you took some personal criticism about communication or lack of communication, and yet ordinarily, knowing the nuts and bolts of an airline, the things on which you would make decisions in a crisis situation, or the systems that would support you, they were all down. The ways in which you would communicate, they were all out of action. How can you get around that in the future when we live in such an IT, such a digital age? Is there some brainstorming that you've done to think, if this happened again, we'd have to have something completely different so we could have at least a basic level of communication?
Yes, the airline industry, and certainly the airlines I've been involved in, are in a constant learning path. You have to be learning every day out of every day that you operate, and that was a special day in some respects. So yes, there's a number of lessons learned together with the airport, and that if we ever were to find ourselves in a situation like that, we would try to enhance the way in which information is managed. I think the overall infrastructure challenge has been tackled, and I think we are in a much better position not to have to deal with the situations, in addition to all the lessons that we've learned. Yes.
Okay. Moving on to something you touched on several times in your speech about the importance of BA staff. Again, another challenge you've had to deal with in recent months is the partial cabin crew strike from the mixed fleet about pay, which I see has now been resolved. How do you square what an airline needs to do, whether it's BA or anybody, in terms of being cost efficient, changing ways of working, changing paying conditions, with BA needing to show that it does indeed have the best customer service and motivated staff? Is there a way you can marry the two together, or is it just a descent to the bottom? You have lower paid staff than in the past, productivity is higher, but people are not minded to give the service that perhaps BA that customers would expect from BA?
No, definitely it's tricky, but the direction is totally clear. we are continuing to match skills where the skills are required, meaning where we have very transactional actions with the customer. We may have a particular set of training of staff where we require to give a lot of special treatment to perhaps premium passengers of some sort. There's special training, more experience associated with that across the board. And I think that we're going to continue working in that way. We must match what services some passengers are willing to pay for with the profiles of the staff that we have. Generally, I think that an airline like BA will continue to look for ways to become more efficient. We have to. I just have to sit here and listen to Scully to really feel that we have a responsibility. But at the same time, I think that there are many ways in which we can become efficient whilst we become customer friendly. You may have noticed in T5, if you are a passenger coming into the building now, there's probably two things you will notice. I'll tell you the second one. The second one is you'll notice that we have a number of baggage drop-off areas, so you can self-tag your bag. It's an option. You don't have to use it. You can use and you can go and talk to a person if you like. But if you want to just drop off your bag, you can do it. Machine, tag, off the bag it goes. And what that has done is given us the ability to redeploy some staff across other areas of the airport. So you may have seen, every time you walk through Terminal 5 now, you will see a uniformed BA person that is there to help you. How are you? Where are you going? Can I help you? Do you have a special need of some sort? And they are providing a fantastic service, not only indicating people where to go to, they're less familiar with the terminal. I think that as we continue to find ways to become more efficient through automation, we will be using the majority of those extra resources into improving the customer service.
Is that something that will stay? Because, I mean, if you look wherever you go now, you go to a supermarket or a bank or an airport, and I hate them, these machines, because I want to be able to talk to somebody, but talking to somebody in a positive way or getting help, as you describe, is great. Eliminating a pain in the neck process, like having to wait in a queue to check your bag in or something else, is different. But if you can keep it, that would seem positive. If you're only doing it short term because these people have been displaced, that wouldn't be necessarily so positive.
We have to keep it. We are a traditional airline that has a lot of links with many partners. The tickets are sold through multiple channels, and that means that we must be able to fulfill the specific needs of each passenger, and they vary, and some of them may be very difficult to automate in any case. So no, I'm pretty convinced that we're going to have people there to look after you and anyone else that wants to have the direct contact with an agent.
Now, what again, more generally about the, away from the passenger areas, making BA into this lean, mean, fast-moving, quick decision-making machine, can it be done for such a massive entity with so much history? I mean, in Vueling, or Click Air, you could decide something pretty quick and implement it immediately. How far can you realistically do that in BA and still have the thing function as it needs to?
We have to do it. We have no choice. I think that when you look at the set of challenges that we have coming over the next few years, and certain challenges and some known challenges, I think that we must really create an organization that will be able to make quick decisions and implement them. I think we're slowly getting there. So I can't tell you all my secrets, but you will see that approvals internally now are taking much less time, or at least you're getting feedback very, very, very quickly. And ultimately, we want to be able to get to a situation in which we can take a decision 1 week about the change of something, and the next week be live at an airport. And I think everyone's mind is around it. My job is to facilitate that within the team at British Airways, and I think we will get there. It might take a little time, but we will get there. We need to get there.
And you're confident, because it's a hearts and minds battle, isn't it, internally? You've got to convince the people internally and behind the scenes that they need to do it and inspire motivation to do it.
And this is why I'm with customer-facing staff and non-customer-facing staff every single week. I want to hear from them. I want to know what challenges do they have. I was just exchanging Yammer messages with my staff right before coming here, because I told them I was going to come here and make the speech. The speech was important. And lots of them with questions. What are we doing about 777s and the other? Having a dialogue is incredibly important. Nowadays, it's easier to do it because we have online channels to do so. But I think that having that connection, being transparent as possible as you go through thinking about all the different options, it's easier to engage with our staff. And ultimately, they see the benefits. If we can really conceive something this week and go live with it next week, that's tremendously motivating.
Okay. Now, moving on to some of the aspects of service that you talked about. I mean, BA, partly by its cost structure, partly by its nature, has had to be a premium airline in the past. Without first class, business class, high revenue customers, the business model historically wouldn't have worked. You still need that. But predating you coming into the role, I would suggest that the airline had fallen behind. You talked about those glory days of the 80s. I was actually a young guy, believe it or not, working in BA at that time. Lord King, Colin Marshall. BA brought in Club World. I think it was the first time even business class had been given a brand name. And I remember we could charge a 20% premium over Pan Am and TWA because they were so bad, we were so good. But those glory days have gone. You know, the American guys have woken up. They're giving good service. The Gulf carriers that you mentioned have woken up. Well, they've always been awake. How can you catch up in this premium service in the way you described?
Yes, and we will. I think the glory days are coming back. So just setting out the new Club World catering offering and the New York route has begun to revolutionize not just the customer experience, our staff and their pride at serving it. The Net Promoter Scores coming back have gone through the roof. We are very, very, very pleased on that particular product, a product that is already looking at the next version and how are we going to develop it from the current offering. And of course, we are totally committed to rolling it out across the rest of the network over the coming months. The white company betting, something funny happened last week, an email from a customer that said, your new seat is wonderful. To which we said, wait a second, we haven't changed the new seat. It was that way in which the bedding had been laid out and the big plush pillow and the other second pillow and everything else. I think that we remained intent on exceeding expectations across all of these different experiences within Club World and ultimately leading into the new Club World seat. But beyond that, we're absolutely determined to continue investing in the rest of the classes, particularly economy, both short haul and long haul, making the overall experience significantly much more engaging.
I just want to bring you back to that in a minute, Alex. Just want to draw out of it a bit more on the premium cabins. Just quickly, on first class, is first class going to stick around or is that on the wane? Because many airlines, including BA, you don't have all aircraft configured with first. Do you think it will stay in some markets? Is there still a role for it?
First class is here to stay.
Yeah.
There is a demand for first class. What we have decided to do, and we have communicated to our investors, is right-size it. Mean it. There are a number of markets that do not need 14 seats in business class every single day. So I think we want to probably make first class very, very special. That's not the project at the moment. It'll come a little bit later. We're completely focused on Club World. But right-sizing first is correct. That is the right way to go about it. But first is here to stay. We will always, as far as I can tell, the demand is there for first class. We're committed to having it.
And business class short haul. I mean, I remember a few years back, BA was thinking whether they took business class short haul off altogether or did something different at Gatwick to Heathrow. You've recently, and I think it was under your watch, put it back on domestic, and I can't even remember when it was last on domestic. How is that working out, and how does it pay its way on Europe too?
It was a completely customer-oriented decision, and the reason why I say that is because there was a tremendous demand from long-haul club passengers wanting to connect into domestic flights that ended up in an economy experience. Now we're able to continue that experience with the club service on the domestic flight. So no, successful from that perspective, and we plan to stick to it. So no, Club Europe, also a product which I think will evolve over time. Probably the next item will be catering, a complete redesign of the catering of Club Europe, probably later on next year.
Now, you mentioned non-premium cabins. Well, there's kind of one in between, premium economy. That seems to be something that's taking off more and more for a lot of airlines. You mentioned in some aircraft you're going to put more. What about on short haul? Is there something missing where the passenger, maybe the business traveller who's bought a flexible economy ticket, is stuck in economy on a short haul flight? But I guess it wouldn't make sense to divide the aircraft into 3 cabins there. Is that something where there's still work to be done?
We've seen what some US carriers have done with this premium economy for domestic flights. We're not there. What we will be working is on that experience of that particular passenger in the main cabin. And what is it that we can do to make that passenger that may be in 24 Bravo as a seat, but we must recognize that that passenger is a very frequent flyer or is a person that has a large degree of loyalty towards us. I think that's where our efforts are going to be. How can we recognize those passengers that may be flying on a full economy fare or have a higher status on the frequent flyer program?
Now, the other story of this year, buy on board, you mentioned it. Everybody's got their buy on board story. You know, it was coming in about the time you had the IT challenge. And if you believe some of the UK media, it was the end for BA. You know, this is the finish. You know, how can BA put buy on board on and take away free cups of tea and gin and tonics? But everybody else has been doing this. You know, Ryanair, EasyJet, even other partners in the IAG group. You said it was not an easy birth in terms of its implementation. Does it still seem to be the right decision? How are customers, as opposed to journalists, receiving this?
I think it's absolutely the right decision. This is not about a particular characteristic of the airline. This is the model with national carriers like SAS or Swiss, even Lufthansa from Heathrow. Most of their flights are buy on board when operated through their partners. So I think that this is the model for short haul. It's really a matter of one or two airlines left to actually adopt it. Where we come in is to try to make sure we deliver it in the best way possible. The partnership with M&S is fantastic. The take-up is much higher than what we originally anticipated, which, by the way, was one of the sources of problems early on when we rolled it out, because we were running out of food very quickly. Now, as we've been learning about the different demand patterns, as we've been adding cabin crew, as we've been fine-tuning the forecasting with our partner, the service is becoming much better. And I think that we're about to start entering the phase where we begin to increasingly improve the service even more. More payment systems, menu changes more frequently, other attributes, which I think will make the onboard catering significantly differentiated from anyone else.
And does it actually make money, or does it like avoid a cost?
I think at the moment, money is not the objective.
Right.
The objective is to make sure that this is a good service, is delivered well, everybody has access to it. And by the way, we get you a sandwich, regardless of which row you're in. And getting that right is what we've been working on. At the end of the summer, this really turned out to be much better. I think that we are going in the right direction.
But some people say, look, it's all very well BA doing buy on board, but they don't charge the low fares that I can get on Ryanair or EasyJet. But can you give a light to that? You talked about some of the promotional offers of £30. Has the average fare been going down significantly on short-haul economy BA flights in the last
As you know, we don't comment on fares, but you're a good industry analyst, so you can extract information from our annual reports and the other analyst reports. And you can see that overall the fare environment has been sufficient to allow BA to be in a position to invest. Mm-hmm. And that's what we are doing. And I think that the investment will also apply to buy on board and other aspects of the economy experience. Look, we are a premium airline. We've always been a premium airline. We're always going to be a premium airline. There's no doubt about it. So we must live up to that promise. We must make sure that whatever product or service we are delivering, it is done in the absolute best way in the marketplace.
And some people say, well, this is confusing to customers. People don't know what BA is. Is it a premium airline? Is it a buy on board airline? Is it complex from a customer point of view, would you say?
I hope not. BA has always been a premium airline, is a premium airline, will always be a premium airline. There shouldn't be any confusion. When people fly with BA, have other expectations. They're expecting our flights to be punctual. They're expecting us to have partners to protect them if something goes wrong. They expect them for us to look after them. And that's what we want to do. We want to continue looking after our customers. That's an inherent trait of an airline like ourselves, like British Airways.
And what about long-haul economy? Because I think you were quoted in an interview alluding to the fact that after buy on board, you might look at charging for long-haul food. But you mentioned just now about better meal service in economy. Is that something that you think has gone away, or would only happen in certain circumstances?
No, I think at the moment what we're looking at is making sure that we have a very, very good catering and long-haul across all destinations. I think over time, decisions have been made, which have been appropriate in certain markets around containing costs, etc. I think we're going to come back and review what that catering is about, make it more innovative, provide different types of products, give it a completely different approach than what we've done before. You must have that second meal, full meal on that on those long flights, and you must have access to snacks and drinks, etc. I think that is the homework that we want to do over the next few months, and just make it really a full premium experience also in the economy cabin.
Oh, those cabins. Yeah. And what about competition? I mean, you covered it in your introduction. I mean, low cost, of course, is a massive issue. Short haul, you ran a low-cost airline. The legacies are in various states of very good health or not so good health, and the Gulf carriers and long haul low cost. Are all of those relevant to you, or are some of the critics right that you're in such a cosy position, at least at Heathrow, that you're kingpin on the block? You don't really need to worry about this competition.
I don't recognize cozy. I don't live in cozy. I don't think that Willie would have hired me if he thought that at any given time I could become cozy. That just doesn't exist. From very early on, when I arrived, I introduced 3 times a day, and some people are sick of them, but I'm actually glad in a way. 3 times a day, competitor news come in through email to everyone in BA. I want absolutely everyone to be aware of what's happening outside of British Airways, outside of Britain, in terms of advances, new products, new services that other ones are providing. So, no, definitely I think we're fully motivated to make sure that we achieve that agility that we were discussing earlier. It's up to me and the rest of the team to work with the rest of the staff at BA to make sure that we can have it. But I think the burning platform is very much there. I love it and hate it when we hear earlier competition is going to keep growing because it motivates us a tremendous amount. We have to be better than anyone else at providing those services, and we must be able to meet the expectations that people have when they buy a British Airways ticket. That's the big challenge.
I mean, in Heathrow, I mean, the airport's effectively full. You've got a powerful slot position, but the competition is pretty intense. And we've got the Gulf carriers all flying multiple frequencies, and the US legacy is the same. What do you think might be the impact now that we've seen Air France has taken a stake in Virgin? That, to me, seems like, along with the joint venture that Air France has with Delta, that seems to me they played it cleverly. They could make far more of their position in Heathrow, give you more of a run for your money.
Yeah, interesting. I think time will tell how that may work. I think time will tell. We are focused on becoming much better than they are at every aspect of the experience. I'm very encouraged with the way that we've been working with Heathrow over the last few months. We are looking at incredible subjects like autonomous vehicles and all these technology around that will not only make our overall operating environment more sustainable, but actually I honestly believe that Heathrow can be the best airport in the world. And I think now there's a home airline that is absolutely committed to deliver the best experience. And I think the airport is very keen to work with us to make that the very best experience. And I'm looking forward to delivering many of these new technologies.
Just keeping on the competition theme, what about competition within IAG? Because IAG is perhaps quite a unique structure. It's a number of airlines and different airline business models who, as I see it as an outsider, you all have to compete for resources. You could say Willie Walsh is a taskmaster. What am I bid to have this plane? Are you, Alex, going to make the best bid to use that plane efficiently, or is somebody else in Aer Lingus or Iberia or whatever going to have that plane? Is that really the reality? You are all competing for the resources.
I think normally on a daily basis, on a week-to-week basis, no, because we're cooperating across every aspect of the operation. We buy things together, we build things together, and I think that we're going to continue doing that. Ultimately, we all have our own little hearts around our own little brands. And my heart is with British Airways. I want to continue building BA and make BA absolutely fantastic. So from that perspective, there may be some competition. But ultimately, on a day-to-day basis, it's all about cooperating, about working together. And it's working because the leverage that we get of working together across many issues is actually having tangible, visible results.
I mean, BA historically, I know IAG is a relatively young group, but BA historically has been the heart in terms of profitability. But recently we've seen some of the other carriers in the group are seemingly growing more quickly. Is that any kind of punishment for bad behaviour? You've brought us all this shame about buy on board and IT meltdowns. We're not going to let you grow.
Of course not. I think each one of the carriers is in a different position in their history. BA is the oldest of them all. It is the biggest of them all. It works in an environment which is slightly more constrained, call it Heathrow and a little bit of Gatwick. But BA continues growing. It has been growing over the last 5 years. We set out our growth targets on Friday at an investors meeting, and we're going to continue growing. We believe that BA is a fantastic platform, and we're going to continue investing 4.5 billion pounds of it. So yes, I think we will continue.
Just to let the audience know, for those who want to stay, we are going to carry on up to about another 15 minutes, and there will be a chance to ask some questions to Alex in a moment. Yeah, I mean, also within BA itself, I mean, we talk about Heathrow, but what about Gatwick and London City? They are different entities in terms of they have a BA brand but behave differently. Tell us a bit more, Gatwick and then London City, Alex.
So London City has its own AOC, has a fantastic team who works very, very closely with the airport and who has developed a fantastic operation over the last few years, and they continue increasing the network on a yearly basis. They are diversifying, so they've been flying from the regions, and I think they will continue to explore opportunities outside of London City. They have a very efficient operation, and I really, really enjoy watching how they're progressing and what they do. London Gatwick, obviously more leisure oriented in terms of the network, both long haul and short haul mostly. And I think that we are going to wait and see what the outcome is of the Monarch situation for potential growth avenues. I think that we can grow in Gatwick. There are more destinations that we would like to fly to. And if we have the opportunity to do so, we will do so. We're very, very happy with Gatwick's performance over the last few years. Gatwick used to be
wasn't
an
it
airport.
A poor relation in the past?
I remember hearing things about Gatwick that were not so positive, and yet I've arrived, and the performance, perhaps the amount of change that Gatwick has gone through, BA Gatwick, over the years, has put them in a situation which is really good. So overall, we will look to exploit any growth opportunities that may come in our direction in Gatwick. It is a great airport, and if we can, we will grow more.
And you mentioned about BA City Flyer out of London City. They're doing some UK regional flying, mainly at weekends, summer leisure flights and winter ski flights out of places like Edinburgh, Manchester, Birmingham, I think Stansted as well.
Bristol, yes.
Is that something we might see build more? Might we see BA back in the regions with localised networks of European flights or long-haul flights? Because that was the case in the past.
We will consider everything, but at this time we're very focused on what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So they're doing, at the moment, they're focusing on a summer operation. They're learning about these markets, not just operationally, but commercially. It really is a pleasure to service executive club members that have a lot of miles and live in Manchester and live in Bristol, etc. Because now they can fly to some of the leisure destinations in club with us directly. So it is a fantastic opportunity. We will continue looking at ways to see if it makes sense to increase the network, but very slowly, nothing much to announce. This summer coming next year will be fairly similar to this past summer. There may be a few reshufflings here and there, but it's an interesting subject, not a huge area to develop at the moment, but we remain very vigilant, and we will be looking to see if the performance gets better, in which case it may be an opportunity.
Now, we touched on long-haul low cost. We've got Norwegian as a very big operator in Gatwick. BA is making changes. You're densifying 777s, putting more seats in. You came head-to-head on some routes with Norwegian last year and this. You've also got a separate airline, a new airline, not one that was bought, Level. Might we see you do more of that to fend off low-cost competition or take a piece of that pie?
Well, the piece of homework that BA needed to do has been initiated. I guess the joke that I tell internally is we were jealous to see the configuration of Etihad and Emirates on the 777s, which is 10 abreast, whilst we were having 9 abreast. So we decided to copy their configuration. The fact of the matter is that 40 odd seats additional in those 777s will give us a significant competitive advantage. The increase on the number of premium economy seats on those aircraft from January of next year will give us an additional advantage. So I think that with those aircraft, we are going to be able to service a brand new refurbished cabin to our passengers. With the new lounge, of course, in the South Terminal, I think we're in pretty good shape, and I think we will be able to really give some of those competitors a run for their money, for sure.
And in terms of the actual, we haven't even touched on the fleet particularly. You've got old aircraft in the fleet, some of them, the venerable 747, and United just came to the end of its 747 operations last week. Those aircraft are going to still be around till about 2024, but you also have state-of-the-art aircraft already in the fleet and coming. Tell us about, do a bit of compare and contrast between the old and the new in BA's fleet.
Well, the older fleet has been around for some time, and one of the, I didn't specifically mention it, but one of the measures that we've decided to invest on is to actually give a refresh to some of those 747s, in addition to the ones that we refreshed a number of years ago. We'll probably retouch some of the 777s as well. I think that overall we're extremely pleased with the new technology. We're very expectant on the -10, on the 787-10 and the 350, more new technology. This year so far 25 787s, and next year we'll have a bunch of new deliveries, plus the 320neos. The bigger balance of newer technology will soon in a few years be significantly much larger than the older technology. We will all be sad when the last 747 flies, without a doubt. Those of us that have seen it from the very beginning, that's right. But I think that in the meantime, there's some work that we have to do to change the cabin of some of the remaining 747s that we haven't refurbished, just to make sure that we update the IFE and some of the trimmings within the aircraft to give it a little bit of a facelift. That is one of the investments that we've decided to commit to.
Now, you mentioned in your speech you didn't really want to wade into a Brexit debate, but you, of all airlines, are right in the heart of this discussion. I mentioned it, I did a presentation earlier on, I mentioned Michael O'Leary is shouting from the rooftops about the risks of it, of what is going on. What is BA's position, and maybe even more broadly, IAG's position? Are you worried, not worried, engaging with politicians about this?
Yeah, my group chief exec has been very clear, making statements that he's not worried, that we don't expect that air travel will collapse between the UK and Europe. But beyond that, I think that what we're doing at BA, the commitment of this investment, the changes that we are doing to the organization to become more agile, are actually going to allow British Airways to be a fantastic asset for Britain, for British travelers, for British businesses, because we're going to continue adding destinations. We're going to continue increasing the quality of the service that we provide. I think that we're going to continue looking for having low fares. You can see your clients more times if the fares are low enough. No, I think that BA will shine through any type of Brexit scenario or any other scenarios, because the work that we're doing at heart, this customer centricity that we're investing on, will deliver a platform which I think will be fantastic for Britain to make it through any of these things.
Alex, let's go to the ladies and gentlemen on the floor, see who would like to put you on the spot. Gentleman second row, have we got the microphone handy? Got lots of questions, need to get the mic as quick as possible. If we've even got more than one mic, that would be great. So one here, I saw it was one over there and one here.
Yeah, hi, it's Robert Wall with the Wall Street Journal. Hi, Alex. I was wondering if you could talk a bit about secondary to secondary transatlantic flying, which is getting a lot more attention. In your mind, is that a BA route down the road? Is that a level route down the road? Or are you just happy to let Norwegian fly that and make money or lose money?
We're not happy, and I did catch the last sentence you said. So we are acting. So today, British Airways, as I said on my speech, is flying to Miami, Fort Lauderdale, for 189 return, taxes, baggage, food included. So we are responding to some of the secondary cities, which, by the way, are turning out to be fantastic markets, because they combine very well with the rest of the cities. It turns out that British Airways flies to 3 airports in the San Francisco, in the Bay Area, Oakland, San Jose, and so San Francisco. That allows you to be able to go to the area on one particular service, come back from another airport, and is given more richness to the network. So at the moment we have 30 destinations in North America in total. I think that we will continue to seek the opportunities to fly to many other cities, call them secondary or not. There are some cities in which they're main cities. And I think the US market is one of the most important markets for British Airways, and we will continue to fly and look for opportunities to fly both from Heathrow and from Gatwick. As if and when Level develops, I think there will be opportunities for Level as well to fly to other leisure-oriented destinations, just like they are at the moment. So I think, given how the market is, there will be opportunities for both. Certainly, British Airways very, very, very intent on not on reacting and making sure that we actually begin to fly to some places where others may want to fly, as well as protecting some markets which we believe are fantastic, combining with other services between both airports.
Right, have a lady over here.
Hi Alex,
Maybe next
Michelle
one's
Robson, Turning Left for Less blog. I wanted to know, when you introduced Buy on Board, did you consider using something like the Southwest model to set yourselves apart as a premium airline, where perhaps you give a free drink or snack, or perhaps something like the American Airlines, where they actually reward their higher tier frequent flyers with something for free? And
Yes.
would you consider this in the future?
Yes, yes, and yes. So when we were conceiving the product, there were, I guess I'm giving away secrets here, but there were discussions about half bob, full bob, how do we do this? And ultimately, we knew that we had to go out to market with a product that would be in line with what was being provided in Europe, which is the model that we have gone through. But absolutely, we're committed to evolve. I sincerely doubt that the Bob product today will be the same a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. We're going to continue looking for refinements. These carriers that you've mentioned, they've been going at it with their own buy on board experience for 20, 30, 40 years. We just started. It's only been a few months. So yes, you should expect us to look for opportunities to enhance the overall product proposition. I hinted a little bit of that earlier today. We are keen to look at ways in which we can look at the overall cabin and how we can service and deliver Bob differently across the different types of passengers. Yes, I think Bob will evolve.
Okay, question over here.
Hi, I'm Joe Adler. I'm a small independent travel agent, but we do well over around about £5 million a year turnover with British Airways. What do you see as the future for travel agents and British Airways?
I think an airline like British Airways is totally committed to the trade. It cannot exist without the trade. I think that we are forced continuously to redesign solutions with you and your colleagues to try to figure out what is the best way to connect you to us, to our passengers. And I think that we will continue to work with you and the rest of the travel agencies, small, medium-sized, large ones, to try to deliver the best product possible. We remain very, very committed to make sure that your customers, when they're under our care, are being delivered the best way, the best product possible. Sometimes that means sharing data, some other times means sharing all the fare information. We are committed to working with the trade. Nothing could be the truth. No, that is the truth. We could not live without the trade. And I'm not saying that just because a few days ago we started a new way to distribute tickets. But the fact is, when you look at an airline like us, which has just about 60% of its sales coming through indirect channels, the trade is key. We need to continue working very closely with the trade. There's no doubt about it.
Good afternoon, Simon Calder. I'm a small independent journalist. I'd like to know, Alex...
Did you want me to give an advice to the previous...
if you could, yes, I'd like to know that. But I'd also like to ask a bit of a philosophical question, if I may. If I'm not mistaken, it's 2 years to the day that BA announced that you would be taking over. Since then, have you kind of got the sense that the British people think they own BA even if they're not shareholders? And if you do, how much of a problem is it when you try to change things?
I have 4 Brits at home that remind me every day about everyday British things. And I've been living a British life for the last 21 years. So if you are asking me if I'm in touch with what British Airways means to the British Airways public, absolutely. I think that clearly what we are announcing today, and in light of future events, call it Brexit or anything else that may be going on in the UK or beyond, is a fantastic commitment to the airline and to the brand of the airline to continue developing itself over the next few years. And I am absolutely delighted to be part of that project. And I know that my team and I feel extremely responsible to make sure that we spend that money wisely, to make sure that BA becomes really the best British carrier and the best national flag carrier ever in any continent.
Just one more, very, if you can be as brief as you can, we'll just take one more at the front here.
Yeah, very simple. In your lecture, you discussed still the importance of customer loyalty to BA, yet in the news, and this also follows Flying Blue this week, there is a very strong move in Avios towards moving towards strictly a revenue-based loyalty program. Do you have any comments on that?
No, I don't at the moment because no decisions have been taken. I think that we are carefully observing what other airlines have been doing, particularly in the US, as one of them having moved into that model. I think we are likely to take a more holistic approach towards Avios and Executive Club. What is it that our customers need? What is it that our customers want? Most of our customers want to be able to buy a business class, be able to redeem their miles for a business class seat to Cape Town tomorrow. And if there's a seat available, they will want to have it. Of course, that seat may be priced differently than a year ago. And I think that is a reality that we have to deal with. We also, I think, we have to work very closely with Avios, the organization, to increase the number of places where you can earn Avios so that you can create a larger pool of Avios points that you can ultimately spend. So no comment on revenue-based. I think it's a relevant subject worldwide, but at the moment I'm more focused on looking at the overall program. And that's what I'm working on with Andrew Crowley, the CEO of Avios, to see how we can revamp it and what things we could do short-term, mid-term to the program to make it, again, very customer-centric.
Alex, we are just about on time, but I wanted to ask you just one final question, because I think you'll enjoy this one. But we heard Scully talking before about his knowledge from the IT world, digital developments. I think that's something that's pretty dear to your heart. Where is BA going, and where do you expect to lead it in terms of the importance of digital in every respect, both customer-facing and how you run the business? Use of digital, development of digital, customer and efficiency of business process.
Digital is everything. And if in the airline industry we don't acknowledge what's happening in the digital world, we may actually be overrun by many retailers. Ultimately, the investment in technology, particularly around how we may be able to accompany you through the journey, is probably the biggest area of focus with us. For me, it has meant to re-platform some of our .com and app architectures, and to create teams that will be able to deliver very quickly new features that we'll be able to test with our customer base. We're getting there slowly. I'm very encouraged about it. Unless we do that, we will not be able to provide a sustainable, good customer experience for our customers.
Great. I think on that note, we better draw to a close. We're out of time. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming to the aviation programme this year. A big round of applause for our guest, Alex Cruz, Chairman and Chief Executive of British Airways. Alex, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
We'll have you back in the future here. How are you getting on?
Cheers.
That's it for today.